Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a special video that is an actual special request that I make this video. So if you are watching and you know who you are, this video is for you. So with Thanksgiving this month, everybody's getting ready to cook the big meal or to contribute to the big meal if you're going somewhere else and you're not hosting Thanksgiving in your home. So we're gonna do homemade, from scratch, real Southern chicken and dressing, or turkey and dressing, whichever one. You can switch out the chicken for the turkey or vice versa, whichever you want to do or you prefer, or whichever is cheapest, easiest for you. You do you, totally up to you. We're gonna make chicken and dressing today because I have a hen in the freezer that needs to, well, it was in the freezer, it's thawed, it needs to come out. I have an onion that I need to use. I have some celery that I need to use before it goes bad. I've already made one skillet of cornbread. I'm about to show you because I need another skillet. So I'm going to show you how I make cornbread. I have toasted some toast, some just plain white bread. It's over there getting stale, dried out, that I did this morning. And I've got some turkey broth over here thawing out that I had baked a turkey a few months ago just so that we could have some turkey meat because I couldn't find chicken anywhere. It was really hard to find meat, but I had a turkey. So I pulled it out, thawed it, baked it, and then I saved the broth. I will also link in the description down below how I make turkey broth or chicken broth in my Instant Pot for this reason, to store in the freezer so it keeps me from having to buy any boxed broth, if at all. I can pull it out of the freezer. So grab an apron, let's go.
Cornbread is easy. The first step is to grease your skillet or cake pan or whatever you're using to bake it in with Crisco really well. Get it good and greased and throw it in a 350-degree oven to get hot. Then we're going to stir up 2 cups of cornmeal. Sometimes it's called cornmeal mix. It's the same thing. For heaping like that, tablespoons of plain flour, the regular tablespoon out of your silverware jar, not the measuring spoon. Then it says 1 teaspoon of salt. I don't measure, just that much. 1 egg. Crack that in. You're going to stir it all together. It's going to get kind of crumbly because the egg's going to break apart and it gets stuck all in the spoon. Just get it all in there and get it incorporated to where you don't have big chunks of egg. Then the next is 2% milk. And the recipe of my grandmother's really does say milk enough to mix. That's what it means, until it's not too thick and not too thin. So you're looking to be about pancake batter consistency. Just going to stir it in. Just keep adding a little at a time until you reach that consistency. You can always add more. You cannot take it out. You want it to look about like that, right? Then you use lots of grease is what her recipe says. I just use vegetable oil and it turns out just fine. So just keep stirring, keep stirring. It's going to feel like you'll never get it stirred in, but you will. Then your skillet should be hot, or your pan. You're going to take it out of the oven and grease it a second time. If you do it this way, grease it, heat it, and then re-grease it, your cornbread will not stick and it will come out just perfect every time. It also makes the edges and the bottom nice and crispy. So you just pour your batter in there, get it back in the oven, and it's probably going to bake about 40-ish minutes, depending. While that bakes, we're going to go ahead and prep the hen. We're going to open it up. I sterilized it with a microban, the sink, after I did the dishes from breakfast. So it is sterile now because I knew that I would have to set the bird actually on the stainless steel sink. So it is sterile and ready to go. But this is why I am always sterilizing the sink all the time, because I have salmonella from raw meat in the sink, and then I'm going to have to turn around in just a little while and use that sink for celery, onion, that kind of thing. So once I get this all in there, wash it out really well, both ends, and I get that in the oven, then I will come back and re-sterilize it a second time, even though the microban says it will continue killing bacteria for up to 24 hours. I don't care. I'm going to redo it anyway, as well as the countertop right here because it dripped and probably splattered. Got to get all the salmonella off my hands so that I can open the butter and the salt. So while my hands are clean, I'm going to go ahead and open everything. And then we're going to salt the outside of the hen, front and back, and the inside. like this. Not a lot, just a little. And then the top. And then we're going to use 1 stick of butter, and I'm going to put it on the inside of the bird with that salt. And then I also have a second whole stick of butter that I melted or softened in the microwave. We're going to rub the outside of the bird with it really, really well. All over as best that I can, like that. And then have to wash the butter off. And since I touched the faucet there, I'm going to not turn it off with my hands and use a paper towel. After I get this in the oven, I will sterilize the sink and the countertop right here. So now that my hands are clean, we're going to drizzle oil. That's the very last step. Get some oil on it, not a lot, just kind of drizzle it, make sure it's all coated. And then this is going to go in the oven when the cornbread comes out. Same 350, and it'll probably take it 2 hours. Now that that's out, 2 hours later, about an hour and a half later is when this is. We had to stop and run to the store, so I pulled the cornbread out, let it cool, scrubbed the sink and countertop real well. We ran an errand, came back, and now we're doing this. So we're crushing up all the cornbread and the toast together in a big bowl, and then we're going to chop the celery up really fine. You're going to wash it, chop the ends off, cut it in sticks, pull the strings off of it as much as you can, dice it really fine, as small as you can, and then dump that in the bowl. I know I used 1 whole bunch, and I had about a half of a bunch in the refrigerator that needed to be used up, so I used all of it. I did not have any celery left over, and then Willow's wanting to know what I'm doing. She sees the trash can out, she's being nosy. And then I had Jason come in after I finished with that, and he did the onion. He did not do 2 whole onions. He did a whole one that you just saw him dump in, and then a half. He did this half of the other onion. So it's about an onion and a half if you're keeping up with that. But the onion really bothers my eyes, and it really gives me headaches. So I let him do that. And then the last part is sage. So I keep it I buy it fresh at the grocery store. Or if you might have some growing at home or in a garden, that's awesome. I do not. I have to get it at the produce section, and I just keep it over time and let it dry out naturally. Or if you're in a hurry, I stick mine in the toaster oven and let it dry out on warm for like 30 minutes or an hour. Then you're going to pick all the stems off and just the leaves, and then rub them together in your hands and pick out these little things, these little sticks, like the stems that were in the center of the leaves. You don't want the little hard, sharp things, just the soft, rubbed sage leaves. And then that, I don't know how much to tell you that was. What you saw me take out of the bag is what I used. And then that's it. Then we got the broth going as well, and it's nice and boiling. So we pulled the hen out, and Jason helps me, and we get it over into a pan so I can pull it off the bone. And it fell apart. We lost that whole leg quarter. But that's how you know it's good. It was juicy. And then we're going to stir it all together. And he went ahead and poured the broth in before I could stir the celery, onion, and sage in. But that's okay. The broth needed to go in. And then I'm going to start letting him stir it for me and add broth to where we can get it to just about the right consistency. And then we will start into adding the eggs. I don't really know how to tell you how much broth. You just have to do it until it is all incorporated and you can stir it fairly easily. And then you're going to start in adding eggs. Again, I really don't know how to tell you how many eggs. It's just one of those you just go by the look and you go by the feel. My mom could tell you more about the eggs. And I'll let Jason stir it.
All right, once you get the broth in, the hot broth from the bird that you baked, and then the frozen broth that I had over there that was thawing out, that's what we put on the stove. Bring it to a boil, and once you get your onion, your celery, and your sage all in here, and get it all mixed in with the broth, you want it to sound like this when you stir it. You hear that? And it needs to look about like that. And then Jason just tasted it. That's his job. He's our resident onion cutter, celery cutter usually, and taster, right? And then he's gonna tell him if it needs more celery, more onion, more sage, or salt.
Salt.
It needs salt?
Yeah, a little salt.
Just a little bit. You can always add more, you can't take it out. And then we added 4 eggs in. I don't really know how to tell you how many eggs because I don't know. You just have to ask my mother. I think Jason's the stirrer at Thanksgiving because this gets really thick. And Mama has him stir while she tastes and adds and adjusts. And he said usually she does about 6 eggs. I don't know. I usually stay away because the onion hurts my eyes so bad. I can't come near it. This one's not too bad right now. So he and my mama are the dressing stirrer people. He said she usually does about 6 eggs, but it's a lot more than this. So we did 4. Hopefully that's enough. But we're gonna find out. So typically we stir this up the night before and we cover it and we put it in the refrigerator overnight and let it kind of meld and mesh and marry. And then the next day we set it out, we let it come to room temperature, and then we taste it again. And then we add more broth because you will have to add more broth after it's been refrigerated because all that bread and cornbread is gonna absorb like a sponge, all the broth that you just put in there. So now we've got the bird out of the oven. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna let this sit while I pull all the meat off the bone. And then we will see again if we need to add more broth or what have you. And then you can either put it in a pan just like this and bake it, which is what we do at Thanksgiving. Or you can go ahead and just throw your meat in here, stir it all together, and then put it in the pan and bake it. Either way, I've done it both ways. If you're taking a meal to someone or you're putting it in the freezer for a meal later, go ahead and add your meat in, and then you don't have to worry about baking meat and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go pull the meat off the bone, put these back in the fridge, and we'll come back.
Okay, so you're going to go ahead and pull all the meat off the bone, or at least I did. Save the bones and skin and the scraps from your veggies to make broth with later. I needed to add a little bit more broth, and then we're going to go ahead, I am this time, and go ahead and add the meat into it and just make it to where it's bite-sized pieces that will fit on a fork. And while this is happening, I have the oven set to 400, and I have greased the pan that I'm going to bake the dressing in with Crisco, and it is in there getting hot. Stir the meat in, and then I had to get Jason to come help me stir it. It got too hard for me to stir. And then I'm going to pull the pan out and re-grease it a second time, just like you did the skillet for the cornbread. Get it greased, fill it with the dressing, and put it back in the 400-degree oven. This pan baked about 40-ish, 45-ish minutes. If it's going to be a bigger pan, obviously it will bake longer. I don't really know how long, but when it comes out, it should be golden brown all over, and the edges should be crispy looking, and it should bubble like that.
Okay, you guys, that's the end of this video. I hope that helps you. I hope it makes things a little bit easier for you. You can do this ahead of time. If you are going to be the one making the chicken and dressing or the turkey and dressing this year, do it like I did. You can freeze it if you want to make it several weeks ahead. Just freeze it before you bake it. And then once you thaw it out, completely thaw it and let it come to room temperature before you put it in the oven. You're going to bake it at 400 degrees until it gets golden brown like that. So it's bubbly, sizzling, and golden brown. If you don't want to freeze it, you can still make it a couple of days ahead and just stick it in the refrigerator. Same rule applies. Pull it out of the refrigerator, let it sit on the countertop and come to room temperature. You may or may not need to add more broth to it. If you do, make sure you get the broth good and hot on the stove. Then add it in and stir it through 400 degrees until it's golden bubbly. So like I said, you can do this with turkey or chicken. You can do this without the meat and do the meat separate on the side, or put it in like I did, however you want to do it. But I hope this helps you. Happy Thanksgiving, happy cooking, and we'll see you on the next video, guys. Love y'all. Bye.